You're watching the Matt to Matt Show, where we talk about... Excuse me.
Exactly 15 seconds, we'll be on the air.
Where we talk about everything that's important to you. From science and technology to pop culture and social commentary. Featuring your hosts, Right Matt, Left Matt, and the disembodied voice of Joe. This is where the conversation begins. Now let's have a chat. Matt to Matt. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Matt to Matt Show postseason. We are live with, as always, in studio with me is the disembodied, re-embodied voice of Joe.
Good evening.
Joining us is, why don't you tip your camera up a little bit so folks can see more in your chin?
Is my friend. You getting it?
Hey, there it is.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey.
This is my friend Pete. Pete is an entrepreneur, an old friend. We used to play in a band together. A very interesting guy. Figured we'd have him on the show, talk about some interesting things in some interesting ways. Make the show more fun. What?
Thanks, man. I missed you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, you know, I wore my good pants and best deodorant today because I knew you'd be coming on. So
Your purple ones? Your purple pants?
You'll never know.
I guess I won't. Can't see.
All right. Well, you have a couple things we're going to be talking about tonight. Gun control is probably going to come up. Some interesting stories from the week. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and sign into your YouTube account so you can chat in the chat. It is up on screen at all times. If you guys why did that just happen? Every week. That's our one for the week. Now we don't have to worry about it. Technical problem anymore. Good evening, everybody.
It wasn't me.
No, it was definitely me. The chat's always on screen, so if you want to be part of the conversation, it is there, and you will be if you comment. So go ahead and do that. The show is at 8 for those watching after the fact because you came at 9 and we were done. It's at 8 on Thursdays now, so don't be one of those people and show up late. All right, so off the bat,
Hey, Ben's here.
Ben's here. Good. Yellow, cheeky. All right, I wanted your opinion on something. All right, I had this thought. Bitcoin is the new vaping, and here's why. Do you remember? Oh, I'm messing that up. Do you remember when vaping first became a thing, and everybody was like, "It's cool because it's unregulated. I can vape anywhere I want. I can vape in a restaurant."
Was anybody actually saying that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
When
I don't think the vapors said that.
No, people were just like,
When it
you
first
can't tell
came
me to
out,
stop. This
yeah.
isn't illegal. And people are like, get out of my restaurant with it.
yeah.
And they're like, this isn't really a cigarette. Ha 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 ha. Well,
They were all driving WRXs, right, when they were saying that.
probably.
when I worked at Chick-fil-A, I had to deal with customers in line who were literally vaping in the restaurant.
In the restaurant?
In line, yeah.
People suck.
So I don't really even know like the history, but like when. I mean, I remember like electronic cigarettes like years ago, but those aren't, I guess, considered to me like what quote unquote vaping is right now.
That is true.
How old is it?
That's a good question. Google that, Joe. When did vaping become a thing?
Are we saying vaping and electronic cigarettes may be separate entities? Because I actually thought they were the same.
Well, vaping is like, I've got my electronic vapor. I push a button and it like creates a cloud in my mouth, and I can put whatever flavors in there I want and stuff. Like that's what I consider vaping, right?
I made those, I'll speak from personal experience. Since I don't vape anymore, but I did to try to quit smoking. Probably, I guess was it like 3 years ago now? That sort of started. But I mean, before I even started, I didn't even really know all the different contraptions and all the different, the new things that they were making, where they were making these like, these huge units where you have tanks full of juice and everything like that. I always thought it was just, when I heard the term vaping or e-cigarette, it was always just like, a little tiny cigarette looking thing and a tiny little bit of vapor. And then all of a sudden I see all these, vape cloud competitions and all kinds of ridiculous stuff,
Yeah. So here's my here's my logic behind that thought. I'm trying to bring up this image. So Bitcoin has a similar attitude, a lot of people about it. Bitcoin is cool because it's an unregulated currency, right? You can use it, you can pass it over borders and things like that, and governments, it's not a government currency, so they can't really do anything about that. It seems to me like that's pretty quickly people are going to start trying to use Bitcoin more than they trade it. Right now, it seems like it's just for trading. Like I hear a lot less talk about like what you can do with it, more than like what it costs. Should you jump on? Should you jump off? You're going to buy? You're going to sell? You're going to move to a different one? Is it Litecoin now? Is it Ethereum? More than like, hey, I can buy a cup of coffee with this. That's cool. When people start doing that, governments are just going to regulate it. Like the same way they did with vapes, where they're like, oh, that's not in the law. Well, it is now. So don't vape in here. They're going to do the same thing with Bitcoin. And they're like, well, you can't stop us from these overseas transactions because it's not with your money. They say, all right, it's illegal to use Bitcoin in the United States. How about that? And then it kind of shuts down you.
I would agree with you to an extent. I mean, aside from the fact that Bitcoin is not really usable as a currency at all. I mean, it takes a crazy amount of time to transfer one Bitcoin to somebody. Like if you're trying to use it functionally, it just doesn't really work like that. I mean, it takes upwards of 15 minutes for a transaction to go through. So if you're trying to go on Craigslist and trying to buy a bike from somebody, nice.
Thanks. Yeah.
Is that
that's Jordan Peterson
that guy?
On the H3H3 podcast.
That's Australia too. Looks like
that's Ethan Klein from H3H3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest vape in the world with like 300 AA batteries.
It's hilarious.
So yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But in general, I think there's going to be. I'm not sure which cryptocurrency is going to be the one. You know what I mean? The one that's like I know for a fact. After getting into it, I got into it maybe probably like around November or something last year. And I'm not I'm part of like an online group that has a little bit more knowledgeable people, so I kind of just listen and follow along, do a little bit of research. I'm not like super knowledgeable.
Is it like is it a secret? Is this a secret organization you're talking about? This online group? You're part of an online group? You don't want to talk about
like a Facebook group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll promote it. It's called the Crypto Wealth Coach.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah. And anyway, so the guy who runs it's like he's been investing in tech stocks for probably like 20 years. And so he has a ton of knowledge on the subject and gives a lot of recommendations for things that he buys. But anyway, so just going on some of the knowledge I've gotten on my own and through the group, there are other cryptocurrencies out there that are way more functional, that the transactions move a lot smoother, a lot quicker. So I don't know that Bitcoin will ever be that one. I think Bitcoin might just be it's going to be like essentially like the US dollar of all the other currencies. You know what I mean? Everything's just going to kind of follow in step.
It's like the flag.
But in terms of a functional use, I'm not sure that one will ever be the thing. But that's the attraction of cryptos in general. But it is already being regulated too. I mean, South Korea had a whole thing where they banned an entire exchange for a little bit. It was down. I think it's back up, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, that was actually what sparked the thought for me, was when they were like, hey, you can't do this here. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess they could just say that and then just because they're in charge. So
yeah, and I mean, for something as volatile as trading crypto stocks, it's like, that kind of stuff where South Korea was like a huge market share. I mean, it like when they banned that exchange, I mean, people lost their pants, I mean, if they held on to their stuff, I think that's the danger with any of this trading kind of stuff. You know, it's like you get a lot of um, new people that are excited about. You know, you see a bunch of people making money. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with like, you know, the stock market crash in 29. It was like everybody was like, "Oh shit, everybody's making money." Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to correct my fault.
Why, thank you. Yeah, I remember. I remember in 2008, I worked at a credit union. Everybody came in and they're like, "I'm cashing out my 401k. It's lost all it's worth." And I'm like,
Right,
"Wait,
right.
you're what? This paper right here used to be worth a lot more money, and now I'm going to turn it into money before it can go back up and be worth money again." I was like, "Fine, I'll cash it for you if you want." Yeah, so that was yeah. Some people don't quite understand.
I agree with you though, man. I mean, I think that's the whole allure of it. I mean, there's a whole like libertarian sort of movement behind cryptocurrencies in general. You know, that just is based on like an anonymity factor. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it reminds me of
a part of it.
yeah, the Wild West libertarian factor of it. It kind of reminds me of how everybody was like, "Well, on YouTube you can do whatever you want. It's the internet. It's not like it's regulated, you know." Make whatever video you want. It's on YouTube. It's fine. And then, you know, last couple of years, YouTube's been like, all right, well, fun time is over. Now we're going to have to start creating rules, and there's going to be, you know, things you're going to have to abide by, or you're going to get kicked off the platform, or you're going to get banned, or potentially the cops are going to get sent to your house for your hate speech, depending on what country you live in.
Or what viewpoint you hold.
Or yeah, exactly. So, so yeah, it's going to be kind of like that, where people initially were like, "This is the best, and it will always be like this forever." Well, most likely not. Speaking of trading, I remember a while ago you were trading currencies. I think it was. What is that?
Yeah.
What's that site called?
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
What's the site called? The app or whatever it is you use? A friend of mine used the same one. I forget what it's called now. For trading currencies. Or the exchange?
The app I use is MetaTrader 4.
Then I'm using the wrong term. Whatever. I noticed because you'd posted like your earnings, winnings. What do you call profits? Yeah. I won. I bet all on red and it went up.
Right.
Yeah, you're still doing that, you say. How's that working for you?
Good. I mean, it's I don't do it too often anymore, just because it takes a lot of. I mean, it's like anything else. If you want to be good at it, you have to put a lot of time and a lot of effort into it, and you have to do your due diligence. You have to track. I mean, all kinds of like macroeconomic stuff. You know what I mean? To see how these currencies are going to play out. I mean, you can just kind of throw some crap at the wall and hope it sticks, you know, which does work a lot of times. And
but at that point,
I trade a lot less volume than I used to, just because I don't want to be glued to my phone
worrying about your bank account. Just like constantly glued to your phone, just being like, "Is my money all gone? Is my money all gone?"
Yeah. And man, there's only so many hours in the day, but I do spend a decent amount of time. Like some days I'll go like a week without trading, and then I'll kind of hop on, or I'll catch. You know, I subscribe to a couple of different YouTube channels and newsletters. So if I see something that some guy posts about,
they'll be like,
new
"Sell now, sell now, sell now."
alert! Well, you know, and I'll try to do my due diligence on it too. But you know, the tricky part, I think, for me in the beginning, the big learning process was. Just learning about margin and learning about leverage and learning, how do you put it? You know, your risk tolerance, I should say. I think the hardest part about investing in something that's as volatile as Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies or foreign exchange trading, it's not like trading stocks where, you know, you might see like a total swing of maybe at most like 10%, like in a given year. I mean, you know, a currency pair can swing 40 or 50% in like 20 minutes, you know, depending on.
So for those who don't, I just realized I didn't preface this at all. For those who don't know, what is currency trading and how is it profitable on a short-term basis?
Sure. So basically you're trading the value of different currencies paired against each other. So you're if you know what the foreign exchange rate is, the easiest way to explain it is if if the exchange rate going to Europe is 80 cents on the dollar, right? €1 is worth 80 cents. Essentially, you're kind of playing off that that spread a little bit. So if depending on what kind of macroeconomic news comes out, whether it's oh god, I don't know, just different payroll earnings or quarterly agricultural stuff. I don't even know all the terminology, to be honest with you, but different things that happen in the world economy will change the value of that said currency. So you're basically trading one currency against another, hoping that it's going to go in the direction that you pick. So if you think that the value of the US dollar against the euro is going to go up, you're going to bet that way. If you think that the value is going to go down based on different factors in the economy, I think it's going to go down. Like I said, you bet the opposite way.
Gotcha. Now,
and that wasn't a great example. It's kind of hard to explain just off the cuff.
Well, that's why not everybody does it. Well, it sounds like there's a master list constantly of what these worths are, right? It's not. When I first heard about this, my first thought was, well, is it possible that China trades against American dollars at a different rate than, say, the euro trades against American dollars at a different rate than, say, China trades against the euro? And so if you traded $10 US to China and then to euros and then back to the US, would it gain value or lose value? I'm assuming there's a system that makes them all trade evenly, right? Otherwise, you could take your $10 and you turn it into 200 yen or whatever, and then you take your 200 yen, you turn it into 250 pounds, and you take your 250 pounds, you turn it into 400 American dollars, just because that's the exchange rate. Since they're not based on gold, they're based on each other.
There's other complications that go into it with the spread that the broker's taking on each thing too. So I mean, it's a little bit complex.
What? It's not as simple as just scamming the system
right,
like that.
There is a global standard, if that's what you're kind of getting at.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming there would have to be. Otherwise, you could just instantly trade in circles in a second and then have lots of money. Magical computer game style.
There's a couple of different exchanges, so to speak. Or one. I guess it's technically one exchange, I think, but it's, I guess, kind of centralized in different locations around the world, I think. I'm not too up on the back end of it.
I just do it, man. I don't.
To be honest.
Gotcha.
No, but like I said, if the economy is doing good in one country or if it's doing bad in one country, I mean, that's going to affect its currency positively or negatively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here Venezuelan money.
The euro might be affected might do well against, let's say, the yen, but it might be doing not as well against the dollar. So you kind of have to know the different economies of each country a little bit, and sort of how they're doing and what they're looking forward to, and a lot of it too is just market sentiment. So when the chair of the Federal Reserve gets up and speaks, a lot of that it has nothing to do with policy or actual numbers that come out. If somebody just says something, that can make a whole bunch of investors go and be like, oh man, he's going to start doing crazy things. Let's sell now. And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So, it's that's why it's risky and super volatile. It moves very, very fast. So like I said, you have to kind of understand your, number one, your risk tolerance, but just proper account management. And it can be super profitable. I mean, I've made a ton of money. I've also lost a lot of money. I would say net. I'm net positive still.
Sometimes the house wins, and sometimes you take the house. That's good. If you leave positive from where you then when you started, hey, that's the point, right? But to me, it still just does sound. It sounds like very educated gambling. Like you're not throwing a ball in the air. You're like looking at, it's like betting during a horse race. Well, that one's falling kind of behind. Maybe I want to move my money over to the guy who's ahead or whatever.
It's more like poker,
By the
less
way,
like
to oversimplify it. What's up?
By the way, you know that little book of
Facts
rules
that
of
you have?
thumb.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
If you ever do bet on horses, it says you should always bet on the horse with the biggest rear, the biggest hindquarters. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
They're the most likely to win.
Bet on the fastest horse. You'll win every time. Oh, all right. That's interesting. You'll try that. Sweet. So I know you do. Well, let me just hit the chat real quick. Apparently, Amor Pizza says Eckerd says people do that all the time, meaning exchange currency and take advantage of the different rates. So that wasn't an idea I just randomly had, but it also wasn't an idea that was impossible. Good to know. Thanks very much for that. Chiming in there, Amor. So I know you do several entrepreneurial things lately. Obviously, you play music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that going for you, by the way?
Good. Yeah, the band's been pretty good, man.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, it's good.
Working on this new agent. It's been a little he's been good actually. I wouldn't even say that he hasn't been good. He's been really good actually. So we're just working out the kinks. I think it's still early on. We got to do a whole bunch of like promo stuff.
That's good.
Coming up.
For those who don't know, Pete and I were in a band together for a couple of years, like a couple of years ago. So different. They're with a new agency now. I heard you. I heard they made you guys go out and get makeovers.
Yes, we had to get makeovers.
Did they give you like a manicure since you play guitar, and like? What kind of how extensive?
I was like, whoa! I didn't order this.
People are gonna be watching you stomp your pedal boards at the beach at your summer shows. You need to look good.
And that's right. Yeah. So I think we're doing that. We were supposed to do a photo shoot like forever ago after we. Have you been out of the band now for
year and a half,
over a year now?
Year and a half. It was November of 2016.
Yeah, and we still haven't got new photos yet, which is
well, you have that one set.
Pat on the back for
you
us
have the
there.
one set. And to answer Amor Pizza's question, High Five Swan Dive. That's the band. Still the band name. Excellent name. Never gonna change it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had that
Correct.
one set with like Philly in the background and everything that you guys seem to still be using, but
yeah, that's
you
right.
got to get summer picks coming, right?
Yeah, moving new agencies. We just wanted to do like a whole new set of photos. I mean, you know how the thing goes. You just got to keep up with it, So we're hoping to get that done in the next month or so. Maybe a new promo video. We've been getting a lot of flack for having an old one.
What with me still in it? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
your promo video has me in it, and people are.
We're just gonna cardboard cut out. We're just gonna cut out Photoshop.
You green screen on Noah's face. Yeah. Hey.
But yeah, I mean, the gigs have been good. They've been a little slow. Obviously, it's winter time right now, so hopefully going into the summer will be a little busier.
Gotcha. What are you working on? I meant to ask you. What are you working on the side? I see you post stuff on Facebook and stuff about like stuff you're writing and videos, things like that.
Yeah.
Anything specific?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I haven't really decided essentially what it's going to be right now. I'm just kind of compiling music. I have like one full tune that's actually done and basically like almost mixed completely and will be ready to put out. I'm just kind of sort of deciding whether it's going to be a thing where I just wait and do like an EP, or if I'm just going to kind of release tunes separately and do it that way, which seems to me to be the way that I'm probably going to end up going, just because I tend to get sidetracked and get lazy. So I don't know if I want to wait for, 4 or 5 songs to be ready to release an album or an EP or whatever. So I might just like, when it's ready, just throw it out. But it's all my own stuff. Like I don't have a band or anything. It's all,
So,
instruments and stuff.
Yeah, I said it earlier. Pete plays guitar quite well. Went to Temple, was it? UArts. I was about to correct it before you did. UArts. Somebody else I know went to Temple. Yeah. So what type of music is it for those interested, and where can they find it?
Oh, it is progressive metal. So it's pretty heavy.
Does anyone
Will be some
sing?
screaming. So if you're into that, what is that?
Is there singing?
Yeah, there will be, yeah, on certain tracks. Some will be instrumental, some will have singing, some will have screaming. So if you're into that sort of stuff, the project name is called Goodbye, Mr. Burton, which is
Goodbye, Mr. Burton.
Yeah. If you're familiar with Big Trouble in Little China.
Not familiar. Well, I'm familiar. I don't know
movie.
very much. Who's Mr. Burton? Main guy?
Jack Burton. That's I don't know what's his face's character.
Yeah, I knew you were talking about.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I watched that when I was a kid. Frightening movie for a kid.
Oh my gosh, it's the best movie ever.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's the project. Hopefully I can get off my lazy butt and get some stuff out. Right, like I said, right now I kind of have just like one song that's pretty much ready to go, and then a whole bunch of other just compiled parts of songs that I'm slowly working on. It's like I have musical ADD to the max. I'll just like be sitting around working on a tune, and I'll come up with an idea, be like, well, it doesn't fit this song, but let me just start another whole new song anyway. So, and then I'll go off on a tangent.
Hey, that's why jazz guys have it good. They just get together as a group, they fiddle around, they're like, hey, that was cool, and then they just leave it.
Yeah.
We recorded it, we
right.
threw it out there, no rehearsals. That's like the original.
Jazz is so easy.
What? No. I mean, that's why jazz guys have it easy. I didn't say jazz was easy.
Yeah. It's a big difference there.
Big difference there. I did jazz piano in college. I know how difficult it is. But that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
How's your band doing with your retroglyphs? You've been playing at all?
We're doing quite good actually. We've got some shows coming up for the summer.
Cool.
Yeah, little guitar. I play guitar in that band. For those who don't know. Yeah, we're actually getting new material together for a release that's coming out later this year. I think we're putting the tunes together to play out live soon. So,
right.
So yeah, the music goes on. But
cool, man.
But yeah, like I said, that's why I do live streaming. And in fact, my old channel I used to put music on years ago. Possibly tonight, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the show. But definitely by Tuesday of next week, I'm gonna start doing live streams of music on my old channel, because I keep having things like I put together and I'm like, well, this is decent. I need to just spend 8 hours and work it out and do it, and that never happens. So I've got arrangements and songs and things like that I'm gonna start playing live on my old YouTube channel and just stream it, and then you have it,
Nice.
Yeah. So like I said, that's like the whole idea of a jazz band. We get together, we do a session, record it, and then just throw it out there. So
yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I'll talk more specifics about that at the end of the show. All right, I want to get into the topic of the day, and not today, but of the day, in general. Gun control. We talked last week on our show about how to not be, to put it mildly, a jackass on social media while discussing topics like this, because, and just to sum up, because generally the arguments we have on Facebook are more destructive than productive. We always just end up looking like an idiot or trying to make others look like an idiot, and it doesn't actually affect legislation as much as talking about other problems with society, as far as making people want to go out and shoot people. Maybe we can make more of a difference in not making people want to go shoot people than we can with changing legislation from our Facebook arguments. So, more positivity in the world was the idea. So, throwing all that aside, let's have a heated argument. No.
Right, exactly.
Just kidding. So today, I don't know if you saw, you probably did. There was a press conference, a sit down. It wasn't even a press conference. It was a meeting that President Trump had with Feinstein and who's the other guy next to him? He was talking about his ideas for gun control. And more specifically, he was talking about a lot of other people's ideas with gun control and sort of being like, well, maybe we could do. It was the same thing he did with DACA, where he brought all the cameras in and he sat down
Yes.
and he put a, like he's supposed to, puts a Democrat on one side and he puts a Republican on the other, and he kind of sits there in the middle and is just like, you guys, we can work this out, right? Maybe maybe we can compromise there. And what you're talking about, that sounds like a good idea. We can all agree that's a good idea, right? Let's work this out. It's kind of like I don't know. It's like a dad talking to kids about things that they all know is never going to happen, but he's just humoring them. Yeah. You know what? We could just make a big bill. We just throw everything into it. We'll call it the big bill. I think he actually literally said that. We'll call it a big gun control bill, and we'll throw everything into it. We'll put that in there and that in there, and Senator Feinstein, when he was just like, you could put that in your bill, and she was just
you want those assault bans? Yeah, let's do that.
And she was literally just like, oh, can we? Oh, can we? And he's like, sure, we'll get there eventually, maybe. So there's a lot of people freaking out because, Trump is our guy, as they say. But he's backed by the NRA pretty heavily. And so he supports the NRA, hypothetically. But sounded like he was about to start caving to some more extreme gun control measures. What do you think about that? Is he?
Dude, no. I feel like he just blows a lot of smoke, especially in these open. He's got at least like Twitter or anything that he says that he's typing. Maybe not Twitter, I should say, but if he's typing it out, he at least is like somewhat putting some thought into it. When he's just like around these round
pretty low bar when you're like,
I would say somewhat.
Well, at least on Twitter,
low.
He proofreads before he sends out dumb stuff. But live, he doesn't.
Yeah, right. And then I feel like his inner Democrat #1 comes out pretty much anytime that he's like in discussion with anybody at any of these. I guess this is the only, like you said, it's the second one that he's done where that was the DACA one and then this one, right? I don't remember any other ones where the press was like allowed in to essentially a negotiating table. But it's kind of it's definitely cool to see that he does actually contrary to what the media likes to push him as, he does like at least sit there and like listen to people, and he's not just like talking over people the whole time. So he at least is pretty good about that. But dude, he's just so all over the place, with saying certain things that are just totally contrary to the conservative agenda. But yet he's been, according to a poll, he's been like the most conservative president since Reagan too. So it's like, dude, I don't even know anymore. It's like I have no idea.
Well, what's interesting is a couple of things, and let me know whether you agree with this or not. His time in front of a camera has usually been on like reality TV. And what do you do on reality TV? You play it up. You kind of lead to a narrative, but it's kind of all kind of fake. The underlying reality is real, but it's scripted and it's meant to be like, well, this week we're at the Big Brother house. We're all going to pretend like she's mean and we're all going to be mean to her behind her back because the script says so, but also she's kind of mean anyway. So like, it seems like a lot of these things, he goes in there with an idea like, I'm going to act like, sure, no problem. Let's just work this out. I want to make a deal. We can figure this out, because that's really all they're doing. They're talking. They're negotiating. They're not going to be held to anything said in that room. So obviously it would behoove him to say what's going to make him seem the best, in the best light. And I think last week his approval rating was like almost 50%, which sounds bad.
I did see that,
but it's actually quite high. It seems like in times of crisis, the president's approval rating goes up typically, or perceived crisis, or whatever it is you want. But it seems like he knows how to play to the camera, and he knows how to play to the people at the table, and he knows that he's not going to be held to any of it. Heck, he's self-contradictory on a lot of things anyway, where he's like, he'll say something, and the next week he'll be like, yeah, I don't think I ever said that. They're like, you did. And he's like, well, I don't think I ever said that. Or I feel like, well, I didn't mean it at the time. So it seems he's fast and loose with his words. But then when he actually does things, as I think Andrew Clavin put it, I disagree with everything he says, but I agree with everything he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I totally 100% agree with that. I think I maybe wouldn't agree with everything that he's done. I mean,
Bit of an oversimplification for sure.
But yeah, just yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think that's probably a good representation of what's going on. You know, it's just a posturing thing. You know, for him, he's I mean, he really is just looking for like the good headlines. You know, and he's really looking for or maybe not. I should say the good headline. Well, I guess the good headlines he is looking for, and then when he gets the bad ones, he'll just slam the media that they're fake news or whatever.
Well, thinking about it, going into an election cycle, this year, not presidential, but an important one. A lot of the headlines, if you think about the negative Trump headlines that come out like every day, and like the news stories and the news scandals and everything, by the time that rolls around, those are going to the ones that have no substance are going to be just so like worn out and gone, and then as he'll have actual things that he's done to campaign on. So rather than focus on things that he has or hasn't done, the media is focusing on things that like dissipate in the wind, and they're not going to stick. They're not going to last. They're not going to go. And it seems like he feeds them those a lot, where he's just like, I don't know, chew on this for a while, chew on that for a while, and then election time rolls around, and he's like, okay, here's what I did that none of you knew about because the media wouldn't report on it. Things like the tax reform, which a lot of people are going to be benefited by. So I don't know. It seems like he enjoys playing up publicly with the media, whatever back and forth they have, and it affects far less than it should what actually goes on. In the same way, what they say,
I think it's been a good thing.
Reality very much.
I mean, I'm totally on Andrew Klavan's side just since you brought him up. I mean, about his, he talks about it probably more than any other conservative commentator that I listen to about just the, his outright, like almost like hatred of the left-wing media. And he's totally just like, hey, that's what Trump is here for. He's here to just put them back in their place and just fight with them, since the conservatives have never had a single voice, aside from Fox News, which really isn't even.
They're a token. They're like token conservative voice.
Yeah, but it's like, every other network, ABC, CBS, MSNBC.
Well, that's what I mean.
CNN especially.
It's like, hey, television, you don't have a conservative voice.
Trump is the one that's coming in there with the club and just now bashing them, and that's kind of a necessary thing, which I can't really argue with that. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of things about like presidential decorum that's important and everything, but people obviously wanted something different than that, and that's what they got. It's certainly a change as far as the way that office is held. I think I went way over the chat.
I was about to
ask
if you're.
They asked a question and I saw it, but then I forgot about it and we changed topics. Let me grab that back real quick. We usually interact heavily with our audience to make sure they stick around and have a good time. But heavily, so bad. We never neglect you guys. We promise. I don't. It's
By the way,
no. That's kind of the idea.
Word of the day. We're going with PHUB, FUB.
What's a FUB?
Short for phone snub. Like when you're ignoring your surroundings or somebody and you look down at your phone in a social situation.
Like Pete's doing right now?
Sorry.
Yeah, maybe.
I thought that was funny. It was ironic.
He's exemplary.
That's funny.
He's exemplifying.
I did not know that was a thing. FUB? That's not a thing.
He's demonstrating it. Yeah.
If somebody were to say like, "Oh, he's totally fubbing you," I'd be like, "He's what now?" I don't think
it does sound like a bad word, but
I don't think it's popular enough to actually be a thing, is it?
It's popular enough to be word of the day on dictionary.com.
YouTube.
And it does happen quite a lot, don't you think?
That's because it hasn't caught on and they want it to. This is the word of the day. Why? Well, because it's not really a word and we want you to think it is. We're trying to make it a word. We're making it a thing.
Maybe it's possible they use pretty obscure words sometimes.
Community live streaming events. I closed the chat window and it's thinking really hard because my internet's being utilized quite a bit.
Okay.
Down,
Well, I mean,
upstream,
I'll give you a rundown.
Starting with the how do you scream without hurting your voice?
Let me go back slightly further, just because I answered your vaping and e-cigs differ in form, but are essentially the same in function. That's what I found from my research. Starting with the screaming without hurting your voice. Well, I looked up and WikiHow came up, but yeah, I'm sure if our guest would like to answer.
To clarify, he probably hasn't answered this, but just to clarify, Pete doesn't actually do the screaming or singing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely not.
Yeah, he's.
I'm sure between the two of you, one of you knows.
Well, I know there's a method. I don't know what it is.
Oh. Yeah, so we're talking about...
it's some sort of like low frequency resonant thing that you do with your vocal cords to like make sure that you don't injure yourself. And there's like a specific way that you go about doing that. A lot of people, from talking to my old singer, my old original band, a lot of guys do it through like an inhale as opposed to an exhale as well, which I did not know. Which
so
is
it's
kind
more
of
of a
hilarious.
sound effect than an actual scream where they're like, oh. It's like when people do crowd, and they're
Right.
like, and it's like,
Exactly.
I'm not actually 30,000 people yelling. I'm just me sounding like 30,000 people yelling.
There's a really popular vocal coach that all the metal guys go to. I forget her name now.
Is it Melissa Cross?
Yes. How'd you know that?
The Zen of Screaming?
There you go. That's it. Yeah. So she pretty much trains. I mean, because a lot of these guys were, I mean, and were having to get surgery and stuff. So, she was like one of the I forget who her big. She's trained a ton of people, but there's a couple of big names that she trained. I mean, once they were on board, she like got huge in terms of training singers how to do it correctly without killing themselves.
One sec.
This is the Zen of Screaming 2.
This is the lady.
What?
This is her.
Every person has this different voice inside of them.
Have some balls if you're gonna sing.
And I don't say I'm the singer, I'm the guy who screams in key.
Let's obviously one in.
Yeah, that's not it.
That's not it.
Use it different ways.
Your parents think it's just get up there hollering in the microphone, boy, and that's not what it is. It's definitely a vocal technique.
Power's definitely.
Oh, classic. He looks down like it's actually, it's pretty technical. It's a technique, Yeah, okay. There you go. And if you guys would like to know more about the specifics, Melissa Cross, the Zen of Screaming. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hope that answers your question, Amor Pizza. I have to say, Bob. I always get confused. He has like 4 real names, and Bob isn't one of them. He does a pretty good job of the noise that they make in that band. Some of the other guys we used to play in a band called A Minor Error, and their singer does very loud, very heavy screaming like that, and he still has a voice, so he must be doing something right. I haven't actually ever talked to him about that. Like, how do you sound like Tasmanian Devil and not?
Yeah, and it's. I mean, he can do it for hours straight without getting tired, which is pretty crazy.
He definitely doesn't just go.
Technique.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't just like shriek and be like, "Good, it sounds good." There's a technique there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I try to scream like one time and I like throw my voice out. So there's definitely something that you have to do.
I would lose my voice singing like Bon Jovi songs because I'd try and sound like Bon Jovi and like put some grit into it. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, I know for a fact because I mean he sings too. I mean he would get more tired more quickly just singing as opposed to screaming.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when we first started, before you were even in the cover band, when he was doing the cover band stuff, because he was pretty much just like only screaming for the most part, and just like a little bit of singing with the original band, and then his workload went completely the opposite way, and then had to just do only singing, and he would get tired after like one set. where he could scream for, like I said, a couple of hours straight and be totally fine.
Yep.
Did you get chat back up?
All right. Yeah. Chat's back up. So
We
we're
just got Ben's comments. That's pretty much the only.
okay. Yeah. What's with the why are we talking about Phuket?
That's just her autocorrect.
Oh, phone snub.
Phone autocorrect. Yeah.
Interesting.
Auto-corrected.
Let's see. Yes, Ben says Trump wants to be the reasonable one. And a lot of people disagree with this, but I think he wants to be liked, and not necessarily he wants people to like him, but he doesn't like being the bad guy. Like when you come up to him, he has a hard time being like, no. The answer is no. Deal with it. He's more like, yeah, well, yeah, whatever. If you've ever had like one of those smarmy agents, like booking agents, who's just like, hey, yeah, we got all kinds of things and opportunities, and yeah, whatever you need, man. Yeah, we could probably pay for that. I don't know. Yeah, we'll get you guys all new clothes and instruments. Yeah, no big deal. And maybe, I don't know. And then it never happens because they're just trying to be agreeable. Seems like a lot of times he plays that role.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, especially, maybe a little bit of an opposite role when he's bashing the media. I think that's maybe just like a nod to his base. I know they.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's different because he doesn't need anything from them. Like they're not trying to like have an interaction as right. They are, but not in the same way as like a mutual discussion. Whereas then it's just sort of like, all right, I'm in charge, and y'all been lying about me, so you know what? I'm not gonna care anymore. Or something.
Yeah.
Example of Trump getting a big story for a week, then moving on is the memo story. Took all... Yes. It did, didn't it? I remember, what was it, 2 weeks ago? The Comey memo or whatever? Or the... What there was the one the Republicans...
The Republican memo that came out.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, and it was like the biggest deal. And then, like, right. I think last week they finally let out the Democrats one, and everybody's just like, "Oh, are we still talking about this?"
Right. Yeah. It's so funny, man. I have completely shut off to this Russia thing. Like, anytime I talk about it, I just like almost like turn my brain off because you were just getting like assaulted with it for so long, and it was just like nothing ever came out. It was just one side yelling at the other side, and like. There was nothing that came out yet, and I'm just like, I just turn my brain off now anytime that I hear Trump Russia. Now I'm out on it.
You have to, on some level, you have to be really, really, to coin a phrase, deranged, to still be like, no, it's there. It's a smoking gun is there where to find it. Come on, we've dug up so many things on Trump Russia so far. We're this close, and it's like, no, I mean, you keep digging and you keep finding rocks. Like that's what happens when you dig, but nothing has anything to do with this, really. I mean, like, people are like, well, there's been indictments. Yeah, but, like, they take someone in for questioning about Trump Russia, they lie about something else, and then they indict them for lying. And I'm like, only because you got him in the room without a lawyer, you pressured him, he lied, and then you caught him in the lie does not mean anything. Yeah, so it's convoluted, and agreed.
I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I know that there's been, like you said, some indictments and stuff, and just other... terrible things like Trump Jr.'s, whole email situation that came out with his attempted collusion or whatever thing. But I mean, as far as that last memo, from what I understand, like a lot of things came out about the FISA courts issuing that surveillance against what was the guy's name? Was it Carter Page? I can't remember the guy's name now.
I don't remember. I haven't seen enough faces. I hear people talk about these people, and since I haven't seen their faces, don't remember who's who. All people involved in the investigation. I have to start looking at like profile shots of their face so something comes to mind when someone mentions them. Sorry, keep going.
But I mean, anyway, to just go a little bit further on that, it was more to me, it seemed like, at least in my basic reading of it, whatever it was 2 weeks ago that it came out, it seemed like there was more wrongdoing on the Hillary camp than there was in the Trump camp, essentially.
It was
which is funny.
Like, yeah, I'm not saying everything they're saying about Trump happened with Hillary. Like she's the one who colluded with the Russians and everything, but they definitely are projecting a bit. with the whole like you guys are playing dirty ball, and it's like, are we or are you? And you're like, we don't like you, so you must be playing dirty ball too. Yeah, there's well, the stuff that's come out because of the Russia investigation that started the investigation into the investigation or whatever, and they were like, wait a second, so the Attorney General told you to do what, Comey? Like, you talked about this, the text that came out of the before Comey talked to Loretta Lynch, the people saying, oh, by the way, they're not going to indict her with anything. Before Comey was like, here's our recommendation, they're like, yeah, we've already decided. So yeah, and stuff like that, and it's really you're pounding on Trump. Whatever. So, all right, well, that's right, gun control. I got off on a bit of a tangent there with Trump, but gun control. Been a lot of talk about it in the last couple of days. Just basically, in 30 words or less. What are your thoughts on that? As far as not like what should we do about gun control, the conversation surrounding gun control.
30 words or 30 seconds?
I was kidding. Not 30 words. We're coming up on 9 o'clock, but you can give us a couple more minutes then.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably the single most polarizing issue in between the parties, and it splits it pretty hard. I think it's there's just such like a disconnect in between in the discussion. You know what I mean? I guess for me it was like a lot of what I think is the crux of like the left on it is, was based on that whatever Marco Rubio said in that town hall meeting where he was like, well, if you're talking about banning this weapon, you have to ban all assault weapons.
All semi-automatic.
All semi-automatics. I'm sorry. All semi-automatic weapons. And then the entire crowd just like erupted in applause, 5,000 people. And I think that's the problem, is that nobody's being honest. I do think that a majority of the left like just wants all guns just out.
Now you're crazy if you think that, is what I've been told. You're crazy if you think they're not just trying to grab your guns. I wonder who told you that. They're not just trying to grab your guns, and they just want these military-style weapons off the streets. But, hey, Allison. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I don't think people realize, we've talked about this on the show last time gun control came up. If you banned all semi-automatic weapons, that leaves like pump-action shotguns and bolt-action rifles. Like, that's literally it. So, oh, stupid dog. So, what that leaves you is not much in the way of, well, I mean, and the biggest conversation, not to continue talking without him here, but the biggest conversation is about, like, the power these guns have. And they'll be like, here is what an AR-15, they talk about, like, here's what an AR-15 does to a watermelon, and then they show a guy with a shotgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, shoot a watermelon, like on the news. They were like, here's what an M16 or an AR-15 does to a watermelon, and then they show a guy with a shotgun blast a watermelon to pieces, and it's like, that's not an AR-15, and so, but
yeah, no, it just like,
but it
just doesn't help at all, like that, the amount of misinformation that goes around specifically about guns is like, I don't know that there's any other topic that amount of misinformation gets spewed.
I agree.
And
yep,
it's mind-boggling to me, and the amount of people that will say that you can like buy machine guns still. It's crazy.
Well, it's
and these are the people that want to talk about policy. It's like, dude, get it, and you can't talk about policy when you're getting like very, very basic definitions wrong.
Yep. And I can understand when like normal people who are really emotional over this, maybe somebody they know got injured with a gun or took their life or something, and they're really impassioned about it, but they don't know quite the technical, what actually is a semi-automatic weapon, and that it's very different from a fully automatic weapon. And actually, my point with the shotgun being, if you banned all semi-automatic weapons, all you'd have is that weapon you just demonized blowing up the watermelon. That's what people would have, a shotgun. It's far more deadly. Just watch John Wick. But when the news does it, I can understand some ignorance with people who don't check their facts and they go spouting off and being like, yeah, well, a handgun can only fire like what, 15 rounds a minute. And it's like, what? Maybe if you have like a single load like revolver and like a handful of bullets, you could get 15 out in a minute if you suck. But when a guy in the news says these weapons can fire 3,000 rounds a minute and a handgun, what, 15 rounds a minute? Did you do any homework?
Any at all?
Like a lot of handguns can fire 15 bullets in like less than 15 seconds in one clip. I don't.
Well, and that's I mean, even with like a bolt action rifle. I mean, if you're a good enough shot, I mean, you can fire however many rounds of bolt action holds, and I think it's like
depends on the rifle, obviously.
Like I think it depends on which one, but they're between like 13 and 19 or 13 and 17, I assume. I've watched some videos of guys like shooting that stuff. I mean, they'll pull 13 shots in like 2 seconds. You know what I mean? It's like, so one's dangerous, but one's not dangerous, and it's just I don't know. It's a I feel like there's just no.
Well, I know that there's well, if you look at any other divisive topic, there's always obviously common sense gun reform. Everyone can agree, right? Every reasonable person agrees with me, and we're only going this far. And then when that happens, they go, yeah, but like people are still dying, so let's go even farther. And there literally is no stopping. Like I know specific people. I know someone, a friend of mine, who I grew up with, said on Facebook, all right, you know what? I've had it. Repeal the Second Amendment, take everyone's gun. If you want one, you have to prove that you are competent enough to handle it. And I'm like, this is the beginning of the Well, that's the beginning of the end. That's somebody going, oh, you win. You wore me out. You wore me out. You win. All of this negativity going, see these dead children. That's your fault. And you go, oh, fine. You know what? I'm tired of having, tragedies. I'm tired of being told tragedies are my fault because I support my right and my family's right and my wife's right to self-preservation against somebody who might be bigger than them. How dare I? So
yeah.
The a similar topic would be like, not to open a can of worms, but like gay marriage, right? People go, all right, can we just agree anybody can marry whoever they want? It's totally fine. All right. Why are you going to stand in the way of love? And they're like, okay, fine. It gets legalized. Gay marriage is fine. It's legal. Has anybody noticed what's being pushed in on that front lately? Like polyamory, polygamy. A lady married a chandelier a couple years ago. No, last year.
Sweet.
A lady married a chandelier. There is, and people pretend this isn't a thing, but it is. They are the whole trans activism thing where they're like, well, we're gonna say this is a guy, even though it's a girl, or we're gonna say this is a girl, even though it's a guy, because anybody can be whatever they want, and just the way that gets kicked farther and farther down the road. There's actually a group of people, which are at least at least as prominent, if not more, than these white supremacist Nazis people are always complaining about, of a thing they call pedosexual. That's a normalizing of an absolutely terrible thing. That's not the same as homosexuality. That's not the same as let's talk about gay marriage. That's, well, where can we kick this can further? So, not to get way into that subject, but the idea that, well, we just want to take your military-style weapons. That's it. We're not taking anything else. Can you just give us that? It's never going to happen. I mean, there are weapons now that are illegal, and that's not a fully auto is illegal. That's not enough. Let's ban all the semi-auto. That's not enough. Next thing you know, the majority opinion from all of this, you know, people on the news posting fake news about how many rounds your gun can fire and what gun does what to what watermelon and what semi-automatic ghost clip 30 mag round chamber things. I'm sorry. For those of you out of context, don't know. I'm intentionally saying wrong things. I don't not know what I'm talking about. This is what they sound like on air. They say things that don't make sense. They don't say 30 round magazine. All right. Sorry, what were you saying? I just realized I sounded like an idiot.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think you know, Jordan Peterson talks about this with you know, the you know, talking about postmodernism and neo-Marxism a lot. It's that kicking of the can just a little bit. You know, you don't take rights away quickly. You don't take an entire right away. You take it away piecemeal. You know, you take it away one step at a time. You know, so like I don't know who I was talking about this the other day, but it's like, you know, like you said, you take away this weapon and then another mass shooting happens, and then it happens with a different gun, and then, you know, we've already set that precedent now that we've taken this gun away. It's like, and it's going to be a lot easier to take this next gun away, and then there's another standard that we're going to take that gun away, and then before you know it, then you're in you know, you're in Soviet Russia, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, you know, there's I think I heard an argument the other day that it's like it should be AR-15 should be illegal because they are based off of a military style weapon. And I'm just thinking, like, dude, you know that all guns are based off of military style weapons, right? Like,
yeah,
every gun, every rifle has been based off of what the military has used during that time. Like, that's what bolt actions were, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not
well, and
the fact that, like, people say they're designed to kill. Like, yes, that's what a gun is designed to do.
That's why I want to buy one. So that if necessary, I can kill someone so they don't kill me. You know?
Right.
You can sit happy in your coffin going, at least I didn't kill him. He killed me. If you want to, that's fine. I will fight back.
I mean, the fact that, like, an AR-15 shoots like a smaller caliber bullet than, like, some of these bigger guns do. It's like, I mean, they're arguably not as dangerous as some of these other ones that you're not going to ban. So it's like, it's not going to fix anything. It'll just be another weapon that's used in this stuff. I mean, it's a bigger issue, you know. It's a cultural issue, maybe, you know, more than anything else.
Well, that just speaks to the fact that it has less to do about actual effect of the law than it has to do with, like, appearance. These are military style weapons. These are things that you know, evil military people used. They're designed to kill, and it's like, yeah, obviously, it's for the narrative purposes.
Yeah, and especially, you know, you have to always look at, anytime that a legislation is passed, you always have to look at the secondary effects and how it can be used. You know, I was reading some stuff on the Second Amendment and came across this case. I forget what the case was called now, but it was basically back when they had I forget which state it was, but the state had, like, a gun registration policy where you had to have a registration to own a firearm. I forget which state it was. I can look it up right now. I think it was Haynes. I might even actually still have it pulled up. Hold on one sec. Haynes versus the U.S. So I guess it wasn't a state specific thing. But so anyway, so there, I guess you had to register your gun around that time. It was 1968. So he basically, like, won this case. So he was a former felon, had got out and was in unlawful possession based on the fact that he was a felon of, like, a sawed-off shotgun. And he got caught with it, and he won his case based on the fact that I think his lawyer argued that he was his Fifth Amendment right to self-incrimination protected him from owning this firearm because he's a felon, so he wouldn't self-incriminate himself by registering the gun. So, like,
so
the
they're
gun
saying
registry is essentially not helping.
Yeah.
it's not helping what it's supposed to designed to do. The gun registry is supposedly, you know, like when everybody like wants to talk about it, is for criminals. So we know, you know,
who has guns.
We can, who has guns, because you know, but it's not. It's against it's going against law-abiding citizens. If that and he won that case, and there's been other ones that are that were tried that were kind of like that. I'll link you that article. It's super interesting. Wow. But just, I mean, that's again a specific case of legislation just being twist and turn into something that it's not designed to do. Good intentions sometimes are you know, they don't that doesn't mean there's going to be a good outcome. You know.
Yep. Yeah, let's see. Amor Pizza said, speaking about postmodernists creeping in little by little, she said, hey, the same thing has happened with our education in the country. Little by little, government takes over. Yep, that's another another area. All areas, pretty much all areas are slowly being co-opted by the anti-freedom narrative. I mean, like one last point on this. Look about like freedom of speech. You know, like 3 years ago, if somebody had been like, yeah, well, like freedom of speech, but that's not like, you don't get to say whatever you want though. I'd have been like, well, you're crazy. Of course you do. That's what freedom of speech is. But then, you know, in the last year and a half, 2 years, we see people who are just like, well, there are limits to your free speech. It's not free speech. Like you can't say hurtful things. You can't say hateful things. I can punch you because of your opinion. Like, wait. What road are we walking down here? So, yeah, little by little. And you know what? I would consider that like when someone says you can't in a public place say something as hurtful and hateful as, I think Scientologists are bat crap crazy, and if one moved in next to me, I might move out of my house. No one says that with Scientologists. They say that with, I don't know, like Muslims, which I wouldn't say, but they're both religions. But I mean, you can say that. You can say I don't like Scientologists. I think they're wacky. People say that about Mormons all the time. But these days, I mean, you can't say that about certain groups, or that's hurtful, hateful. The United Kingdom this year alone has the police, and I think London, maybe it was all the entire country, have made upwards of 15 arrests for social media posts. For people's, like, just speaking. Not like they're posting images of anything. They say something, it's the wrong thing, the cops come to their house and arrest them. Like, for hate speech. That's not like that's not a joke. That's not an overreaction of people being like, oh yeah, hate speech. They're not going to come like arrest you for it. You're just going to get kicked off Twitter, which is a private company. They can do what they want. No, in England, they're arresting
people. Like realize how many countries like don't have freedom of speech. It's like that's crazy. I didn't know that about the UK. I mean, I knew about, you know, like the Canadian thing recently with that whole transgender pronoun bill.
Yeah, we talked about that. Bill C-16. We talked about that a couple times on the show last year when it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't misgender somebody. It's hurtful. Why would you do harm to them? You're obviously a bad person. You fall into the evil category when we, you know, fine you or re-educate you, which is a wonderful idea.
I mean, that's basically what happened in the, you know, in the gulags, you know. So,
yeah, you're not thinking correctly. Let's fix that in whatever way we can.
We'll fix that. We'll just take you to a place with other people. It's a camp. We'll call it a camp.
Sorry, the connotations there. I only laugh because if I didn't, I'd cry. Well, let's see. We're over time for a bit, so I think it's a pretty good place to call it right there with concentration camps and laughing. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, sharing your hot takes with us. I appreciate it. Been meaning to have you on for a bit because you're of your perspective, interesting perspective. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
I gotta say, you were part of my my awakening, so to speak.
Yeah. I meant to get to that, but we didn't. Well, like when I remember during the election, discussing with you whether or not we should have a mandatory $15 an hour minimum wage. You were just dead set for it.
Yeah, I was stupid back then.
I was about to say, like, do you still hold that belief, or is that like?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I mean, I was not. I just was. I was brought up. I guess I wouldn't say there was a lot of politics in my house or anything like that, but I would say I was always brought up liberal, and I went to an art school, so it was incredibly liberal.
An art school was liberal? What are you talking about?
Yeah, right. And then just being around, being around our buddy for so long, for that many years. Like I said, I guess I didn't care much about politics until this last election cycle, and started reading and educating myself, and realized that everything that I thought was wrong. So, but I think you were like I said, I think you were part of the catalyst to that.
That's a way to put it. Well, you know what's interesting is and I just happen to be okay. So to put that in my perspective, I appreciate your perspective on that. This is one of those times when things have pushed so far to one side that pulling from that side back to the center is the right thing to do. So when things are swinging so hardcore in the Marxist socialist direction, that pulling back this direction is the right thing to do. And then when it passes the middle mark and goes into whatever style, religious authoritarian right kind of thing, pulling it back the other direction will be the right thing to do. So at this point in time, I was raised the opposite way, where, military, Christian parents, and a large family, very religious. So right now, the direction I've my entire life been pulling politics happens to be right now the direction that, it needs to move. So it would be easy for me to go like, see, my whole life I was right. Everybody needs to agree with me. But, who knows? In 8-10 years, things could be swung way far in an extreme right direction where they're just like, maybe there are certain shades of people that are shadier than other shades of... No. Come on. Let's pull that back in a more free and open and hippie direction that the liberals originally were. So...
Yeah, and I think for me, especially, after getting into... I guess I got into it through... You still there?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, my screen froze. I didn't know if it came. But anyway, so, when I first got into it, I guess I got into it, sort of like through these more cultural type things before I started getting into, economics and policy. So I think I'm more interested in economics than I am in cultural issues personally. But, it was essentially the like you talked about, the culture shift that just pushed, with Bernie running and everything, just pushed so far to the socialist Marxist side that any sane person has got to just listen to the stuff, because that's what happened. I mean, I was pretty much a Bernie supporter because it sounded good.
Hey man, school loan forgiveness.
And this is before I had any idea about any sort of economic had any economic sense whatsoever, because literally none of that works. But once it started to get just like over the top, I feel like I don't understand how like your brain just doesn't like the same person's brain doesn't kick in and be like, whoa, that sounds weird, I need to check that out. And that's what happened to me. You know what I mean? I think I was just like, wow, he's saying all this stuff it definitely sounds way too good to be true. Let me check that stuff out. And I was like, whoa, none of this stuff works at all. So.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
yeah.
Can't argue with that. Well, when I start carrying tiki torches around my house, and you're like, whoa, that's not the right. Come on. You can come over and pull me back in the right direction. So.
All right.
I lost that. Why tiki torches?
Tiki torches, Charlottesville, white supremacists. The ugly face associated with the right wing.
Okay.
Yeah. They are to conservatism what Marxists are to liberalism. They're not really liberals. They just pull in a similar direction, and so, yeah. So if
there's only like 200 of them, right? I feel like there's not that many.
Yeah, but online, it's a really like not hipster, like a trendy, edgy thing to do. So there's quite a bit of online people being just like, yeah, but like civic nationalism, ethno-nationalism? I don't know, just because it's interesting. So it seemed it has a similarly high presence as, say, I don't know, nihilist furries or something. It's small, but it's loud.
All right.
So yeah, I'm just saying, like, if I need to pull in the other direction, you'll be there, I'm sure.
Yeah. If I ever, you know, if you start marching around your yard with your tiki torch, then I need to come over and rein you in.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, Pete, we're gonna leave it there. I appreciate you coming on and sharing that. Let everybody know, what was it your project was called? Goodbye, Mr.
Burton.
I was trying to remember. I saw that movie a long time ago, but it's been a long time.
Go watch it again. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I've been meaning to, and that's another catalyst. Now I'm going to. All right, well, thanks for being with us. Any whoa. Oh, I went to click on it. It wasn't there. Any last words?
I'm good, man. It was great seeing you.
All right. Thanks, you too, dude. Like I said, at the... Oh, gee. I missed the chat. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta have more guests. I'm not used to talking with the both of you. Yeah, like I said, tonight I'll be... the link is in the description. Tonight I'll be streaming on my music channel really late. It's more of like a recording that's just there anyway. So it'll be there tomorrow in your inbox is what I'm saying. So, or if you want to stay up till midnight my time, go for it. But around midnight I'll be streaming, doing some songs, taking some requests. Do comment on this if you're watching it after the fact. We always read those comments. Catch us next week, 8 o'clock on Thursday. Thanks for being here. Peace out, guys.
Bye.
Oh no. Are we done?